Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is brought to you by the Friends in Recovery community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction. Join our hosts as they speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Friends in Recovery podcast. I'm your host, Jersey Ed, along with two different co-hosts today. We got Jill and Nature Dan, family specialist. I don't even know what else he says he is over there, but we have Dan and Jill with us today, guys, and we're going to get this show started here in a minute. Real quick, everybody, if you want to call us on the podcast hotline, that's 800-989-6504, or email us at help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com, or go to our website, friendsinrecoverycommunity.org. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this show, right, Dan? Share it to everybody. Share it. Get the word out so we can...
And lots of hearts.
That's right. Lots of hearts. So give us a bunch of hearts today. So just keep Bambi and Beth in our prayers, some personal things. So we will, they'll be back soon. And for now, you have to deal with these two people. Jill and Dan, you guys probably seen them in the last couple podcasts, which went very well. Dan's a tree hugger, I guess. I think that was one of our last podcasts, and we did our spiritual animals, which was really, really cool. So just check some of those whatchamacallits out, the past podcasts out. Real quick, I just want to mention hello to Carl and Chelsea over at SoberPod. Carl, if you're going to insert a commercial, this is where you would put it.
Are you a rebel seeking transformation in your recovery journey? Then 366 fucking days sober is the book for you. 366 daily meditations. This book by the SoberPod Recovery Podcast host and professional rebel, Carl, will help guide you towards a new way of thinking and living. Each daily meditation offers a fresh perspective, practical advice, and a healthy dose of Carl's irreverent humor to help you stay sober and embrace the challenges of life without drinking, drugging, or shitting your pants. Whether you're just starting your recovery journey or looking for a daily dose of encouragement and laughs, 366 fucking days sober is the book for you. So, if you're ready to transform your life and become the rebel you were meant to be, get your copy of 366 fucking days sober today. Available today on Amazon.com.
All right. Thank you for that commercial if you put it in. If not, then get on it, Carl. So anyways, and well, we were just talking before we came on about Carl's book, like what a great Christmas present this would make, right? Or, for a treatment center, there it is, for a treatment center to pick a bunch of these books up and just buy it like in bulk, in quantity. And I know there is no discount because Carl's not making anything on this except for a Bentley payment, and that is it. So that's all he can afford when he sells these books. But just kidding aside, reach out, grab these books. This is my go-to book every day, guys. My go-to book every day. I read it every day. Matter of fact, we're on a little text thread, Dan and Jill and a couple of us, and Dan talked about it this morning around 5:00 this morning. And as I was reading, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good one. So we're going to read from it in a minute, but I just want to see how you guys are doing. How'd you guys feel after the last podcast? I mean, this is kind of, your cherries popped and you guys are here now, this is it. You're not virgins anymore. So how do you guys feel?
I love the podcast. And I just want you to know, Carl, I had two books. Dan has one of them. And unfortunately, one of my clients walked out with one. So I am going to make a suggestion to my boss to order a lot for Christmas.
There you go.
Presents.
Absolutely.
But the podcast has been great. I'm enjoying this morning with my coworkers.
She's just saying that. You should see the text she just sent me.
Yeah.
And Dan, how about you? What's your feelings on this? I see you got a microphone, like you said you were gonna a couple of weeks ago. You threatened, and the threat has come true. So
yeah. So I got the microphone, and I love the podcast and the book. The book is awesome too. When I sent that message out this morning, it was like, I turn to the new page every day in that book, and it's like it's meant for me, and I feel like that's like the meetings that we have for the Friends in Recovery also. It's like no matter what meeting you go to, you're going to hear something that's meant for you also. And that's why I had to send that message out this morning, because, those are meaningful things that you hear, every day. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's important for us. Well, us as addicts, alcoholics, and people in recovery, we have to connect with each other. There's no pills for us to take. There's no treatments for us to go to, except for at the beginning, and maybe a tune-up here and there. But we have to get our daily dose of whatever that is. And you guys heard me say this 1,000 times. I don't live on meetings anymore. At the beginning I did, and it's really important that you do. But, as my sponsor said, they told me, Eddie, it's time to, kind of get out there and expand your horizons, apply everything you're learning here in recovery, in the meetings, and bring it out into the real world. Because I was going to 2-3 meetings a day after a while and all that. But that's where this literature comes in. And I think maybe we should talk about literature today, because it's really, really important. Especially it's getting cold out. And we'll get into the reading in a minute, but especially because it's cold out, right? People don't really want to get out, but Zoom is another good way of getting into meetings. We have a bunch of meetings. If you go to our website, you'll be able to see all our meetings, or if you go to aa.org and check out Friends in Recovery community, you'll see all our AA meetings there. But and Zoom is a great way, but also literature. I think. What was the public? Was it the Grapevine that they published so they can get meetings out to people? I know Beth gave us like the big book was like a meeting book that they were sending out to people, because they, when 1935, I don't think Zoom was here yet, right? A couple of years until it was invented, I guess. But they were mailing out all the AA books to keep people kind of together, right? So what's your guys' thoughts on literature? Do you guys read the literature? Is there certain ones that you do or you don't read? What's your thoughts on all that?
I have literature. I have literature emailed to me every morning.
Do you?
Yeah. I mean, just for today, of daily reflections. I mean, there's a lot of literature out now. I mean, there's so many different books to read from, but those are my two favorite.
Oh, okay.
Besides Carl's.
Dan, what about yours?
Yeah, I would have to say for me, for now, I stick to strictly, I always go back to the big book if I need it. But I kind of gravitate now towards Carl's book, because I don't, I enjoy going to the Friends in Recovery meetings that we have. And, being of service that way. And, because of the work schedule and being so busy, it's hard to be able to go to a meeting, so having that virtual option is a big deal, so being able to jump on a meeting, whether it's in the morning at 7 a.m., 9 a.m., 12 in the afternoon, 7 o'clock at night, it's great because, I might work till 5 o'clock in the evening. I might work till 6, but I have the option to just jump on there and host a meeting or whatever, so.
Yeah, it's true. I love what Neil's in Facebook Live with us. Guys, also, if you want to be live in the studio with us, this is our new studio here. If you guys, we're using Riverside FM now to record everything. Thank you, Riverside, even though we paid to be on it. I don't know why I'm fucking thanking them, but if you guys want to get a link to actually come into the studio with us, you could email us at help at friendsandrecoverypodcast.com or email me directly. I think it's jerseyed 2018 at gmail.com. So either way, email us and we'll send you a link so you can use the link every time we're on to come into the studio. And we can even pull some of you guys up to come on the show if you have a question too. So that's really cool. But Neil on here says Zoom is God's way to show the world that recovery rocks and nothing can get in our way of sobriety, right? Exactly. I mean, and let's think about that. Like when we were stuck in the house during COVID, like I know that's how Friends in Recovery are born. You know, that's how that's how the community was born. The podcast was going on, but the community was born that way. And, we ended up getting, all these meetings now, so it's not just getting out and driving to a meeting and in the snow or in the rain or do I have a babysitter, don't I have a babysitter, whatever it is. I mean, even if you're going out to dinner, think about this, guys. Even if you're going out to dinner, you can throw a meeting on your phone
right
while you're driving to dinner, get a quick dose of your recovery. Maybe you're new in recovery and you have a question. Hey, listen, guys, I'm going out to a dinner, and I'm not saying don't drive, and you should be in a passenger seat when you're on your Zoom call, not driving, just to let everybody know. And just say I'm going to dinner, and people give you advice, and if you're only on for 10 minutes, whatever it is. But see, we never had that option before, right? I always left my my daily reflections book in my car. Like next to my the little pouch next to the driver's side, and I read it all the time. I read my daily reflections was my go-to reading every day, every single day. I read it in the car, and I haven't. My book is probably 29 years old, and I have the original book from day one almost. But that's my literature, my go-to literature. The big book I'm okay with. I'm not really a big book guy. I'm more a steps guy, so I do read the 12 and 12. So that's kind of my go-to, but my new go-to is definitely 366 fucking days sober, guys. Yeah. And this book is no nonsense. And this is not a commercial for Carl. This is not asking you guys to buy the book. This is truly what I believe this book is. What does it say here? 366 daily meditations for the rebel seeking transformation in recovery. And that's true. You know what I mean? This is written for people, for real people, right? For real people, for the people of today, for the people who's going through this shit. Carl put his shit in here that he's been going through or gone through or whatever it is, and made it somehow a daily reflection or a daily reading and turned it into it's an amazing book, really is. And again, this is not a commercial for you, Carl, but it's a testimony to
real life.
Yeah, a new life and what people can do in recovery. What if Carl never got into recovery? This book would never existed if he didn't take that chance and jump, take a leap off the edge and not drink anymore. Mm-hmm. This book wouldn't exist. This podcast wouldn't exist, right? I mean, think about it, And so I'm very kind of partial to this 366 fucking days sober, but do you want to read it? Since we're talking about it, you want to read it, Dan?
Yeah, I got it.
All right.
All right. December 2nd. Far too often, our human condition can override our humanity. What the hell do you mean by that, you ask? Well, for starters, we really like to see other people fail. Don't we? Isn't that some sad shit? You may feel you're above all that, but you are only human. And it can feel pretty natural to find a little enjoyment in some asshole's hardships. As we begin to get sober and see our world and ourselves differently, we need to reflect on how hard it was for us at one time. We should take time to work on being empathetic towards others who are also on the same path. We try to never relish other people's misery because we know what it feels like. Instead, we should dig deep and try to cultivate our empathy and compassion as much as possible. When we work the 12 steps, attend meetings, and really listen, read, and engage in recovery topics, we develop these aspects of our humanity with greater understanding. This helps us to have a greater understanding and better serve others in their time of need. The reflection: are you bettering yourself just for yourself or to better serve others? And the daily challenge: what is one thing that you can do today to better help someone else on the same path you were once on?
That reading, every time that book, I pick it up or somebody reads it, we're just on the topic, it's always exactly what's going on. I'm telling you, I had an experience yesterday.
It is.
Oh, God. I'm talking about an experience where I'm trying to help somebody who exploded, and just I felt like I forgot where I came from it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm telling you, it was really, really exactly what you just read. And that reading just hit home with me. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think we lost our live stream here, guys. Something happened, so we're going to keep going on here, obviously. So Facebook Live is not here anymore. I don't believe so. Yeah, it's not here. I don't know what happened. Again, this is a new platform, and we're just trying to get used to it. But yeah, Jill, it is so true that when we read these things, and then I could not go to a meeting for a couple of days or whatever, and the reading will be like it'll be exactly what I needed, right? Like this morning, how true. I mean, this reading is true. Like we love to hear other people fail. I don't mean love, and I look forward to it, but something in us, right? I mean, it's like, well, yeah, I can do that better than them. See, I knew that, right? But that's the old way of thinking. But I also think it might be in us too for some reason, kind of, I don't know if it's bred into us or put into us as human beings, but I remember when I was drinking, I can drink more than he could, or I can do more coke than she could, or, I can drink and drive better than they could. You know what I mean? And then, see, when they got into an accident, I would have never gotten into an accident. It's that, I don't know. It's just the evil streak. I don't know what it is, what it was in me.
It goes to just, it's not for everybody, but I think that you're right. It is inbred in us as addicts and alcoholics. There are some people that you're like, you're an asshole, I don't want to see them succeed, but we're not supposed to be thinking that when we're working 12 steps. But sometimes, we are human, and we got to work on it. I mean, I'm sure there's always somebody that irritates you around you.
Yeah.
Always.
Oh yeah.
But
there is.
Fail, that's kind of that's not working a program.
No. And you know what? My sponsor always tells me, Eddie, you can't control the first thought that comes in your head, but you can control the thoughts afterwards, right? And those thoughts will come into our heads because we're human, and that's what our brain does. And there's worse thoughts that come in our heads, but that thought of people failing, we can bust it out and get moving on right away. We don't have to give it a moment of thought. But like you said, Jill, we can, we don't need those thoughts anymore. They'll still pop up, but I think what recovery taught us is how not to get into those thoughts, how not to go down that rabbit hole, how not to, take other people into that hole with us, Right. And some of us do sometimes. And again, that is part of life, I guess. And, I guess misery loves company. I guess that's the old saying, but we don't have to be there. Right. I mean, I know since I've been working with you, Jill, I mean, and you and I become very, very close, and you too, Dan, but I've seen you from digging that rabbit hole and inviting people down to it's not closed yet, neither is mine, but shoveling more dirt into that rabbit hole so you don't go down that far anymore,
Right.
you know? And, you know, I'm sure you have, you know, kind of grown through the years through your recovery, but from when I've known you for the last year or so, I've seen that growth in you, you know? And that's what they're talking about here. And, I like the reflections. Are you bettering yourself just for yourself or to better yourself for others? Now, I thought that through this morning, right? And yes, I am bettering myself for others, but if I don't better myself for myself, you know what I mean? Then I can't pass it on to others. I think what I do better myself for myself so I can pass this information on, so I can serve other people, so I can get on this podcast and know what I'm talking about, or being a good sponsor, a good sponsee, whatever that looks like. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. You guys want to answer that, the reflections?
What was the reflections, Dan?
It was, are you bettering yourself just for yourself or to better serve others?
Well, I think that's a combination of both. You know, I definitely have to work on myself in order to be present for somebody else, you know. And listen, I'll be the first one to admit I still have lots of work to do. Mm. But, you know, since Dan and Ed has come into my life, they've probably been my saving grace, like at many moments, you know. And I do have to remember when I came in, where I was at in certain situations. But today, you know, I do try to be kind and courteous. And sometimes I walk away and go to the other room when I feel myself getting elevated. But, you know, yeah, I think it's an answer to both. Yeah, I got to work on myself in order to be able to help others.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, we're in the service business, if you believe it or not. I mean, we are here to serve others, to get healthy, to move through to their next part of life. You know, as much as I like to think we're a big part of everybody's recovery, we're a small part, but there's always small parts of everybody's recovery, whatever that is. You know, my sponsor's a small part of my recovery. My running's a small part of my recovery. You know, and those small things get into a big ball, and then that's, you know, you can even have that big ball, you know, using, or you can have that big ball recovery and then pass that ball around, you know, make sure everybody, and then you take what, you know, I always said, take what you want, take what you need from the meeting, leave the rest for others. Right. And that's a great kind of, saying to understand, like, because sometimes you go to meetings, you're like, well, what the fuck did I get out of this meeting? You know, like, seriously, I would go, but then I have to think, well, you know what? I was on the meeting for an hour. Maybe something I said helped somebody. I was in a place of where like-minded people were for the last hour. I wasn't doing anything harmful to myself. So that's how I have to look at it, you know, and, you know, no meeting is a bad meeting, even if you think it's a bad meeting, you know, you don't know who you're going to help. Dan, what's your thoughts on the reflections of today?
I mean, I think, you know, just like where the kind of work that we do, you know, with me just now getting a different position, I feel like I'm bettering myself in order to help others in a different way. You know, but in order to do that, like, I have to work an honest program to continue to better myself, to stay well enough to help others, you know? So, the second that I fall back and am no longer empathetic towards people, you know, then that puts me back into a sick and suffering state, you know, and I'll no longer be able to serve people and better myself. Yeah.
And that's true. A sick and suffering state. Let me ask you guys this. How many people you know that are in recovery are in that sick and suffering state, right? I mean, how many people out there, right? Yeah.
There's a lot.
Just because you put down the drug don't mean
and you're still listen. Just because you're sober doesn't always mean that you're in recovery. You know, you can still be sick and suffering. You can still be an asshole and be sober.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole lot more to it than just being, there's a lot of people that, they're still dry drunks just because they're sober.
Yeah.
Putting down the drink is just part of it. Jill, what were you saying?
I know a lot of people who just, stopped and they, like think they're cured and they're a bigger asshole than when they drank, but and they think they know everything and they continue on and on and on. And sometimes there's just not no getting to them, you know what I mean? And it's sad because, I think that if somebody just gave it a chance and tried to do some work on themselves, they would start to see that little 3% change. And I think the program works. 12 steps.
Well, how did bettering yourself, like again, I can kind of say this is a back and forth, but how bettering yourself, no, I shouldn't say how, where do you think in your life you excel because you bettered yourself in that area? Like,
areas?
In all areas?
Absolutely.
Okay. I like that.
Like my anger, my career, social life, my finances, my, everywhere. Like my friends are different. Everything in my life has changed.
Yeah. I love that answer because we know when we get into recovery, we can't hang around the drug dealer. We can't go to the bar, can't have a bottle of whiskey in the house. You can't, whatever, you can't go buy cocaine for your best friend anymore. You know what I mean? You can't do that, and you're right. We have to change all that people, places and things we talk about in the program, right?
Yeah. Everything. I have very few people in my circle. I have a great sponsor. I mean, I have a good job. I involved in 12-step meetings. I'm on the podcast now, I have a life coach, but I still have lots of work to do. I use drugs for probably over 30 years, somewhere close to 35. So, I have a lot of work to do, a lot.
You think that work will ever end?
Never.
Why?
It's a lifetime job until I drop. Boop.
I agree because our problems are if God gave us the same problem throughout our whole life. First, it'd be fucking boring. Second of all, we would never be successful at anything we do, and third of all, we don't have the same problem. Daily problems come up. We're problem solvers as human beings. Our brains try to figure out what the problem. Like right now, when Facebook went off, I'm like, well, my brain's going like, why did it go off? Like, figure that out. I'm back and forth trying to see why it went off. Did it go off? But that's what we do. We problem solve. And sometimes it gets too much for our brains, or for ourselves. We get overwhelmed and we have to scale that back. But, we're always problem solving, and, we're always trying to move to the next higher level, and that's what we do in recovery. And earlier when we were saying dry drunks and all that, I think that's the ego that gets in the way, number one.
Absolutely.
And number two, you don't want to grow and push forward because listen, guys, growth, you're going to fail in growth. We know that, right? You're going to fail in trying to figure out what the next career, like this morning, this new studio, I had to figure it all out. Like I've been up since I've been on it since about 6 o'clock in the morning trying to figure this new studio out. I'm like, no, it's not going to work. It's not, well, obviously we're on here doing this, but, the old studio, the Zoom studio, it was easy because I knew how to do it, right? Problem was solved. Nothing else to do. It just became automatic. But now here's something that's going to improve the podcast, something that's going to make it easier for all of us. And I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? I've been trying to put it off. And this morning I got on it, but now we're kind of getting through it. We're going to move through it. And next week when we do another show, it'll be another, kind of under our belt and all that, and it's just, that's how life goes, Dan, what's your thoughts on that? Where do you think your best growth came, or are you like Jill kind of even all over the place?
Mine's probably all over the place, but my best growth came with my emotional regulation.
Mm.
Yeah. Where I was able to regulate all my emotions, and that kind of tied everything together. Where once I was able to regulate my emotions and deal with that, and and I was given like coping skills and things, I was able to deal with life on life's terms, and I've been sober for a long time now. So,
Yeah.
but I still, I carry a 24-hour coin because 24 hours is all I have,
Yeah.
I don't have any
Yeah.
more than the next guy.
Yeah, you're right. That's it. That's it. And I was journaling this morning. You said that you said that. I was journaling this morning, and I wrote that I only have this moment. This moment, I'm journaling. Right. I can't change the things that I did in my past, and I can't control. I don't even think it's future tripping. I think when we think of the future, I think we're trying to control things. Right. That's my thoughts on that, anyways. And if you know anybody that's very controlling, they're always, number one, trying to control you. Number two, trying to say, okay, you're going to do this later. 3 days from now, you're going to do that. I know a couple of people are very controlling, and that's what they do. They want to make sure you're going to do what they say to do in the future, right? So now your mindset, there it is, and I got to figure out all the future, what's going on in my future and the past, and we forget about this very moment, this podcast. I had to stop. And like with the Facebook, they had to stop because this is a great conversation. I don't want to miss it. So if I'm going to be all tied up with something else, and trying to figure out what happened, which I have no control over, why I'm on the podcast. That's why we need somebody to produce the show. Why we're the talent, to figure that shit out. Right. But we deal with what we deal with, and that's it. So and you can't change things, but we can fix things. We can learn from the shit that we've fucked up in the past, and we can make it better today. So we know in the future that, we're not going to do that again. And it clears a way for the future also, I believe, because, we don't have to think about that crap anymore. Right. We don't have to be bogged down with those past thoughts or those past feelings or all that stuff. And we can go into the future open-minded. We're not bogged down. We're not in that forest. Like, where are we going next? And, I used to live like that all the time, even in recovery. And, my thoughts on this are I do better myself, but there's plateaus that I always hit in recovery, like plateaus. And I like working on myself, whatever that is. One plateau I hit, I went into a program, just to like better myself through my ACOA stuff and my codependency and all that. I went into that program. Another plateau I hit, I ended up getting into a lot of personal development, becoming a coach and getting a coach and, all these different things, and now, instead of hitting those plateaus, what I do is I build a little bit each day, right, to keep myself well-rounded. So when I do hit another plateau, I'll know how to kind of get through that, or I'll know who to look for. And maybe it's not going to be as hard hit as those other plateaus used to be. Right. And or that level that I'm at. And because once you get to a new level, guys, when you're on the level below, you're on top. Right. But when we get to the next level, we're on the bottom of that level. We're like, what the fuck do we do now? And it could be right. It could be really detrimental because, hey, listen, I was just on top. I was the fucking A student. I hit the next level and I don't know what the fuck is going. Perfect example. Again, the Zoom. I was a fucking A student on Zoom. I pushed the button. It went to fucking Facebook. I knew what popped up. It did this. I come on here. I'm the new kid in the class, man. I'm, dragging my fucking book bag around and figuring out what the fuck am I doing, But it's okay because I'm going to learn and we're going to keep growing and growing and growing. And
Right.
and that's what I mean by, if I keep figuring this out a little bit more, we'll, I'll be okay, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, whatever it is, 10 years from now. So, back to literature, and we can close on this. Neil just said something in the podcast. He said it helps us grow mentally. And God, I forgot what he said. I can't go back on him. I can't find it, but he said, literature helps us kind of develop our brains, develop our feelings. It's just another form, of reading and kind of adding to our arsenal of stuff for recovery, or even daily reading. I read daily. I read a minimum of 10 pages, at least a minimum of 10 pages. And out of a book, not out of a newspaper. I don't watch the news, right? I couldn't even tell you what's going on out there. I couldn't even tell you locally over the world. I don't need to be exposed to that kind of crap in my life. Now, is it important to understand some things? And absolutely. But, you guys were around when 9/11 hit. Remember when you would just watch and listen and hear and right? I mean, how crazy was that for months? Like months, the same old shit, right? And what did that do? It didn't do much for me. I don't know about you guys, but that's, again, literature. I can kind of look at it and read it. I can read this page next year again and see something completely different out of it, or a week from now and see something completely different out of it. So that's my thoughts on literature. What about you guys?
Yeah, if I read this book the same time next year, I'm going to get something totally different out of it, but I'm going to feel the same way, that it was exactly what I needed at that time. It's that's just the way that these books work. It's just like a 12-step book. It's like when you're going through the steps, you read it and the steps meant for you right then, or, the daily reflection, it's meant for you that day. It's the same principle, That's how I feel anyway. It's always meant for me that day. And that's what I get out of it every day.
He took the words right out of my mouth too. I feel like every time I open my email or whatever the case may be, my books over here, I feel like it's meant for me in that moment. Like sometimes I walk around here cursing Carl out. Like, are you kidding me? And maybe it's just not in the morning, or it's like I get to it around 11 o'clock when I get a break for something. I read the book or I open my email and I'm like, Jesus. Like, this is an addict's dream, because every time you open something, it is that moment you're going through that. So, works out that way.
It does. And even in a meeting, and they could be reading a big book, whatever the literature is. And some of those big book readings, I can't even understand sometimes. Right. But there is a sentence in there, there's a line, or there's somebody sharing on it saying, I really need to be here to hear that, and that shit changes your mind. And I think the other thing too is maybe when we don't hear that, we're not open that day or at that moment to hear what the message might be.
Yeah.
But I know you guys, I know you guys are very open and willing to learn. So, you're probably in the same boat as I, we can always learn a lesson from something, Yeah. So, great show, everybody. Don't forget to go buy Carl's book, 366 fucking days sober for Christmas. Listen to Sober Pod also, but also listen to us. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but here it is, 366 fucking days sober. If you guys are new or you guys want to, kind of expand your recovery a little bit, if you go back, last year? I think it was last year. Yeah, it was still, because it was 2022. We did the step of the month. Every month we did a step and talked about it the whole month. The last week we talked about the tradition of the month, and we did that for 12 months. And if you guys really want to get a good handle on, we got people on there from therapists that Jeff would come on every week and talk about, every month, and talk about the step in a clinical way. So if you're looking for any of that and you want to kind of bump up your recovery, check out last year's podcast. The whole year, if you're working on a step or if you're stuck on a step, go to that month that the step is and just get some information, and it's all in there. So it was an amazing year last year. And this past year was amazing too, with, having some new co-hosts and you guys coming on and all that. And, we're always looking to change things up and, make things better here at Friends in Recovery Podcast. But, Jill and Dan, thank you guys for coming on the show. I know, man, I don't think it was last minute, but we do what we need to do, and I thank you guys for coming on, and thank you to the audience for listening. And stay sober, everybody.
Bye.
This concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates, and enjoy free access to twice daily support meetings. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.